Let's talk quickly about unique selling points. So basically, you hear this all the time, experts talking about your unique selling points. Sometimes you hear the term unique value proposition. So those are two interchangeable terms. What I want to say here is that if you have a small business, whether you have a startup or you have an established business, you're always going to really grapple with the whole issue of unique selling point. Why? Because you are in a very competitive industry, competitive marketplace, okay? You have entrants, you have newcomers all the time, and you have to constantly differentiate yourself. That's what a unique selling proposition is, unique selling point is. You have to really differentiate yourself all the time. Now, I want you to look right now on the screen. This screenshot tells you a lot about what a USP really is, okay? So, what customers want, what your competitors do well, what you do well. And this is actually an intersection. Think about it that way. It's a conceptual intersection of those three things. So, if you're able to actually craft your USP to be a perfect representation, a perfect summation of those three things, you would have won 50% of the battle, okay? And you got to win the USP battle because, again, going back to what I said, you have a very crowded marketplace, a very saturated marketplace. And in a saturated marketplace, if you don't differentiate yourself, customers are not really sure what you stand for, what your products and services really solve as a pain, let's say a solution, bring a solution to their pain points. Okay, so basically, your USP is what makes you stand apart from your competitors. Okay, it's the core strength that differentiates you from your competitors and gives your business an identity of its own. The way I look at it, it's the little thing that gives you a super competitive edge. And you got to have a competitive edge, okay? So how do you structure your USP? Because see, if you are able to define your USP and make sure that it communicates what makes you so distinctly valuable to your users, you got to really structure your USP in a very, very, I would say, methodical way. So if you want your USP to clearly communicate your unique features, you got to give it a proper structure, and you got to make sure the structure is relevant about what it offers, and specific about how it helps your target audience, right? Because everything has to center around your target audience. Because if you are defining your USP and you're not able to correlate that to what your target audience really wants, you're just wasting your time, okay? For example, if you are selling custom printed t-shirts online, your USP could be offering exclusive designs inspired by local street art. So this unique approach sets you apart and appeals to a specific audience looking for wearable arts that captures the essence of their community. And the most effective part comes in when you tell them what benefits you can offer to your users. So when we talk about unique selling point, we need to always correlate that to your brand. In other words, how does your USP add value to your brand? Because every communication process that you really trigger around your USP, if you're not able to actually correlate that to your brand, again, this is actually not a good use of your resources. Why? Because if people are going to buy from you in a, I would say, in a scalable manner, in a constant fashion, if you want to retain your customers, if you want to have loyal customers, they have to see your USP as an important factor, an important element in your brain. Because if you're saying, listen, my unique selling point is I'm doing this and that, but then how does your brain fit into the psyche of the populace, the psyche of the population, the psyche of consumers? Okay, so you got to really you got to find a way to seamlessly. I want to insist on that. No complicated processes here. Okay, it has to be seamless. It has to be efficient. It has to be effortless. Okay, so customers have to see logically that your USP flows into your brain, your branding, if you will, and vice versa. Your brain has to also flow seamlessly into your USP. For example, if you think about Apple, the brand, everybody knows Apple's USP, okay, because they've spent years, if not decades, actually instilling in consumers' mind the USB. I mean, Apple's USB, sleek designs, for example, interactive, efficient processes, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so If one thing for sure, if you want to stand out from the crowd and your USP has done a great job, your brand can also help continue that job. When you have a well defined and strong USP for your brand, you can clearly communicate the value you offer to your customers. And that's what you want to actually stabilize your monetization processes to bring in revenue. Okay. So it's a great way to make your target audience resonate with your brand. And this in turn will motivate them to convert, even if they have to spend a few bucks more, right? Think about how much Apple is charging for its devices versus competitors such as Samsung and others. Okay. Besides, when you have a memorable USB, it's easier for people to remember and recall your brand when they make a purchase decision. Now, when we talk about USPs, we got to really wait for it. We got to really spend a couple of minutes explaining what a compelling USB really is, okay? What makes an excellent USB? It's important to understand that when you are thinking about having a compelling USB, you want to focus on customer value. Everything revolves around the value you are offering to customers. Because simply saying this, and I mean, my USB this is how I differentiate myself in the marketplace. This is what I do. But what are you doing for the customers? And how does what you do actually improve the lives of customers? Because again, at the end of the day, you have to improve the customers' lives. Okay, you want to identify service gaps or opportunities, and you also want to make sure that your USP is assertive but defensive at the same time. So when I say you want to focus on customer value, you need to understand that if your USP is not compelling enough, you will not be able to attract quality leads. I want to insist on that. Not just all kinds of leads, quality leads, okay? And those quality leads hopefully can convert at some point. If you're thinking about the long term success of your business, you need to make your USP sound compelling to your users, okay? There are a number of things that can make that happen. First, okay, customer value. I've said this before. You need to understand your target audience's needs and problems. Once you identify that, you want to craft your USP directly around that problem and show how you can help them solve it. Okay. So another way of making your USP customer centric is by highlighting your benefits rather than your features. You should also clearly communicate the positive results your users can expect from you. Okay. And so when I was talking earlier about identifying service gaps or opportunities, it's basically looking at the market and seeing what's happening, what the competitors are now offering, and that you can offer. Okay. You can also reach out to your competitors for feedback to analyze their unfulfilled needs, pain points, or even ask for suggestions. This will help you identify the service gaps in the market, and you can then turn these gaps into opportunities and create a compelling USP. So when I say assertive but defensive, this is an important element when it comes to USP. Okay, because at the end of the day, you are trying to differentiate yourself. You are trying to use a very strong language. You are trying to show why your brand is strong, why your offer is valuable, why your offer is actually unparalleled in the marketplace. Okay, so a strong USP should always be assertive on its assertive about its own strengths and should be able to protect its own position in the market. Right? We are speaking about a very competitive marketplace. We are speaking about a very saturated marketplace. And in this economy, if your USP is not really defensive, you can't really survive because rivals are constantly looking at ways to actually chip away from your expertise. Okay, don't hesitate to highlight your strengths or emphasize your weaknesses, if you will. Okay, in doing so, always use strong and assertive language that reflects your confidence. It is also super effective to use action verbs and impactful adjectives to highlight your benefits. Okay, and to validate your point, you can also use social proof. This can be user testimonials, reviews, user generated content, etc. So that's kind of cool from a flexibility point of view, by the way. And one thing I want to say here is that the whole idea here, when I say assertive but defensive, you have to really, if you have social proof, if you have the possibility to incorporate social proof in your USP, that's pretty good, because then all of a sudden you are giving a whole mountain of credibility to your USP. Because if you're having a social test, if you're having a customer testimony, if you have testimonies from past clients or current clients, then you are really adding validation, credibility, accountability to your USP big time. This your USP becomes doesn't stay as vague words, as empty words anymore. Those are really backed up by reality, by a proven track record. So now that I've explained to you basically everything you need to know about USPs, what are USPs not? We need to really delineate what a USB is not, because a lot of businesses, a lot of small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of freelancers actually confuse USB, like the concept of USB. So basically, it's important to remember that your USP helps you differentiate your business from your competitors. Okay, so it's not just a slogan or a tagline. We're not here trying to really look at the best pitch, the best content for the next Facebook ad or the next Facebook or YouTube ad or Instagram ad, whatever. No, it's basically your opportunity to know exactly the type of markers, what I call competitive markers, that actually set you apart from your rivals. Okay, and that's important, because what gives you a competitive edge, and how does that edge that you have over the competition translate into making your clients' lives easier? Because the bottom line, everything we're just talking about here, everything you're doing, if you're not satisfying customers, if you're not solving pain points, if you're not bringing solutions to the market that really solve some hardcore problems that your prospects and customers are having, you're not going to go anywhere with your USB, right? So the whole idea here is not just to craft a USB in theory and hope to actually implement it in real life. No, you have to make sure it is actually delivering, I would say, value to your customer, okay? And don't forget, the whole idea here, your focus should not be on your competitors. Of course, you need to differentiate yourself. You need to really explain what sets you apart from the competition. That's for sure. But you do not want to really spend time on the competition, because your USP is all about delivering value to your customers, delivering value to your audience, okay, to your target base. That's it. For the rest, let your competitors do their own analysis. Uh, you can reach out to them, to some of them, during the I would say during the market research phase, but after that you don't have to really maintain contact at all. I want to share with you a couple of brand USPs, okay, actually two, so you can see exactly how the whole concept of USPs can translate into real life. I want to show you Canva and Shopify, so have a clear idea about how they play their the branding game and how they play the marketing game. So if you look at Canva, for instance, on the screen, what do you see? You see a brand that empowers, at least that attempts to empower the world to design, right? Like if you see the little border around design, the green border around design, it tells you a lot about. It's a very simple process, a simple landing page, but a very powerful one, because it just shows you that everybody, no matter how artistically inclined they are, can actually design through Canva. This is really good, okay? So Canva, the graphic design platform, has an amazing USB. The platform focuses on making graphic design a simple and cost-effective process for everyone. It tries to convey its uniqueness in a few simple words, okay? Can you imagine that? Empowering the world to design. That's it. Nothing really complicated. Really straightforward. That's really fantastic. Really fantastic. Another USP that I want to share with you is actually Shopify. The USP from Shopify, okay? So Shopify is just telling you here the platform commerce is built on. Notice that they're not saying the platform e-commerce is built on. When Shopify started, it was all about e-commerce. But nowadays, Shopify wants to veer away from want to pivot from their earlier e-commerce focus to now to just be commerce. And commerce just means e-commerce, but also brick and mortar commerce, so offline and online commerce. Okay, so that's important. So Shopify actually has a powerful USP. It is a user-friendly platform that helps anyone create e-commerce websites without any codes. Its USP delivers a clear message to its users in a few words. Okay, so that's really cool from a flexibility point of view, but also from a friendly, let's say a user friendliness point of view. So after you created your USP, after you've brainstormed about it, after you've watched how competitors are actually advertising or even promoting their USPs, after you've seen how you've gotten preliminary feedback from your USP through through a restricted, okay, sample. Okay, one thing you need to really understand here is that there are several ways of communicating with your USP. Okay, you can actually incorporate it in your web page, in your website landing pages, in your headings, in your taglines, in your slogans. Okay, and you can also do the same thing. You can have it on your social media pages, in your apps, for instance. Okay, it's all about finding the best medium to communicate, to really spread the word about your USP. Okay, you can also create some valuable and eye-catching social media posts to reinforce your message. The same can be done through your email marketing campaigns. Okay, so that's really good because email marketing is a powerful tool and it has remained so for the last 20 years. By the way, some businesses even highlight customer testimonials that showcase how their USB helped the user solve a problem. I think I just said this to you, right? Social proof is important. Testimonials are important. So, in conclusion, if you think about it, finding the right USB might not be a one-day job. That's for sure. It takes time and effort, but it is one thing you can't miss if you want to stand out in the competition. It will ultimately help you drive more leads and boost your conversions, and that's what you want. You want to boost your conversions. Okay, so at the end of the day, a brand can actually have more than USB. Okay, I mean this is ideally, but it's only one all-encompassing value proposition. Okay, that's what you want to have ideally, and your USB has to be actually very short. Okay, brevity is really important here. So USPs are often summed up in one statement, which should have 10 or fewer words. Okay, 10 or fewer words. That's really awesome. So, in conclusion to this conversation, I spoke to you about USBs, give you a bird's eye view about the USB, what makes a compelling USB, and some examples also. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.